Earlier this week, I had a young escrow officer ask me, what's the #1 factor of finding long-term success as an escrow officer? I thought about it for a second, and although there are many different things that we have to bring to the table that are non-negotiables in terms of skill set and knowledge base for somebody to consider working with us, there's one thing that I feel like far and away has more influence over time than anything else, and it's grit. It's the ability to keep trying every single day, day in and day out, to build your book of business. It's a quality that frankly a lot of people don't have. People will try, they will fail, and then they will have to go somewhere else to recover and lick their wounds and spend time trying to get their head back in the game so they can go try it again. The ones who are able to pick themselves up right off the bat, dust themselves off and get right back in the game and go try it again, those are the people who find long-term success. This is a business that involves trying to garner loyal customer relationships with high professionals who have been doing this probably for a long time and have seen a lot of different things out there, and they're not going to be quick to make a decision, to make a change, to come and work with you. Doesn't mean that you can't land them eventually. You just have to keep trying. I love to archery hunt. Archery hunt is one of my passions in life. I love it for what it is, but I love it for what it teaches me about myself as well. It's hard. It's really hard. There are challenges out there that I have to face as an archery hunter that I never know what I'm going to get into when I go out there. All I can do is just bring my best preparation to the table and then adapt and adjust as I get out on the mountain. First of all, I show up top notch with the things that I do have in my control. Fitness level, mental fitness level, equipment, gear, and plan. I bring that to the table. That's the extent of what I can really do. Everything else is being adaptable and adjusting when I get out in the field. But when I get out in the field, I've got to at that point assess weather patterns, topography of the area, the movement of the animals, wind. All of these things play a critical role in my ability to find success in what I'm after that day. But I don't control any of them. And there's so many parallels to that in what we do in building business. So you make your list. You figure out your targets, you determine your plan about how you're going to go after them, and you bring your A game and go out into the field and make your approach. And if they don't give you the time of day, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go on to the next target. Don't even think twice about it. If you feel the need to go sit down, take a break, recoup, try to get your head back in the game, that's fine if that's what you need to do. It's better than nothing. The more you can shorten up that cycle of reset, the better your success is going to be over time. I was on an elk hunt one time here in Utah, and I had reached the end of my hunt. I had been on the forest for 21 days at this point, and we had hunted a few different bulls. Hadn't found really anything I was super excited about. Had an opportunity to shoot, but just didn't take the shots because I wasn't interested in those animals. We felt like we could do better. This was a limited entry hunt, so it takes a while to draw. You want to make the most of this hunt, right? I had a group of guys that were there helping me out. We had a great time. We had patterned a bunch of herds. We kind of knew where they were all at, but just hadn't found success yet. We got to the end and everybody had to go home. I had one day left that I stayed on my own. Everybody else leaves. I stayed one more day. We created a plan for what I was going to execute the next morning. We had patterned one bull 3 different mornings. He had taken the same route at the same time, and he was a good bull, and I was going to go get him this last morning. So I got up, got down in position well before the sun comes up. The elk start coming out. They're chirping. I can hear them. Everything's shaping up just like it has the last 3 days. And time comes when he should be coming any moment, any time now. He's, within a 30-minute period. This is kind of when he's come through, and I'm sitting there completely still, completely quiet, ready to rock and roll, and the bull never comes. I sit there for another hour, let all the elk move through the area. It's a ghost town now. No, there's none left. I know full well he changed his pattern. He just didn't come through this morning. This was the last morning that I had on my tag. Hunt closes this evening. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I was starting to accept defeat. I get in my vehicle. I'm driving back toward my camp so I can pack everything up and just head home. I'm accepting defeat at this point, and it was bitter. On the way back up, halfway up, I knew there was a canyon that held elk. We had been down in it and seen elk in it during this hunt, but had never been successful yet. Every time we hiked down in it, it was a super deep, super long canyon. We hiked down in it. The elk end up moving out. There was a private boundary they knew to get across for some reason, and we just never were able to have a shot. And then we'd have to climb back out of this canyon. I bet I climbed down in that canyon and back out at least a dozen times on that hunt. And it was just grueling, and I just really didn't want to do it again, especially where I'm already feeling sorry for myself that the hunt that morning didn't work out. I passed that spot. Actually, I stopped and I bugled, and he responded. He's down in there. And I made the decision to leave. I don't think, why would this be any different than any of the other 12 times I tried it going down in there? I'm not gonna find success this time. I'm a fool for thinking anything would end up differently. I'm just gonna go home, I'm done. I got nothing left here. So I get almost all the way back up to the top. And I have the thought, or I should say the thought comes into my mind that I know there's an elk down there and I didn't even try. What would have happened had I gone down in there? Is there any chance that I would have seen success? If I don't go try, I'm never gonna know. And the way that hunting works in Utah, where this tag was, it's gonna be 25 years before I have another chance like this to draw a tag like this. I have to go try, I have no choice. So I made the decision to turn around and go back down. Got my gear together, set my plan. I knew the general area where I couldn't see him, he was way down in there, but I kind of knew the lay of the land. And to my luck, there was another hunter in the area that was blowing an elk call. And every time that hunter bugled, this bull would respond. And I knew it was a hunter just by the sound of the bugle and the fact that it never moved. I listened to it for a while just to see what was gonna play out. If that guy was hunting this bull, I'd sit it out and let him see what he does. But he wasn't, he didn't move. Time and time again, he'd bugle, the elk would respond. So I got to the point where I decided I'm gonna go after this bull. So I'm all alone in the forest, at least there's nobody with me in the forest. I grab my bow and I start my approach. Luckily, at this time of day, I had the wind coming in my face, which is a critical component of archery hunting. You have to play the wind. That's one of many components that's totally out of your control, right? Much like in business, there's always going to be aspects of what you're trying to accomplish that are out of your control that can definitely lead to failure, and they do all the time, but they're not in your control. So we have to learn how to not feel bad or feel sorry for ourselves when something doesn't work out, when it was something that was totally out of our control that caused the failure. You got to reset and try again. So this was my last ditch effort. This was my one last chance. I start moving down into this canyon, and the way I did it, I would listen to the other hunter call, the elk respond, and I could zero in on where he was at, and I would move toward him maybe 50 yards and stop, and I would wait and I would listen and pay attention to the wind. Has the wind changed? No, it's still good. Other hunter blows his call, elk responds. I hone in on his location again and I move toward him another 50 yards. Stop, sit down, wait, listen, be patient. What's the wind doing? Wind stays favorable. We did this routine for probably close to 2 hours, and as I worked my way all the way down in to where this elk was. And I got to a point where all of a sudden I popped up on a little tiny hill, and without realizing it, I'm in the middle of his herd. He's got a small herd, 7 cows, and he's the herd bull. And by the time I realized that I was nearby, I was totally exposed. I made a mistake. I walked up onto a ridge where they could see me. And there's 20 yards in front of me, there's a cow elk that I couldn't see her because her head was down feeding. I just saw her back above the grass. And no sooner did I recognize what she was and that she was there when her head comes up and she looks right at me. And I'm standing out there totally exposed, like I'm stuck. All I could do was just stand like a statue and hope and pray that I could sell it. Luckily, I paid attention to the wind. The wind was still in my face. She looked at me for what seemed to be an eternity, but it was probably, if I guessed realistically, it was probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And then I see the ears flop. She decides I'm not a threat. Head goes back down. She feeds again. I couldn't believe that I just sold that, right? These are things that are totally out of my control that are working to my benefit this time, when so many other times they had not. So I stayed. I worked on knocking an arrow. Right after that, I see the bull come walking out of the trees. He walks down, pushes the cow out of her spot, and now he's standing in front of me 20 yards, and he's paying attention to this cow, and he has no idea that I'm standing 20 yards away broadside to him, and I'm able to take that shot. Massive success. It was such an exhilarating experience, because here I am all alone, my party's gone, I'm at the final hours of this hunt. It's been grueling, it's been taxing, it's been difficult, had some really fun highs, had some massive lows mentally in this hunt, and now I finally just harvested a bull. So I sat and just took it all in for a little bit, just trying to understand what just happened and wrap my head around this experience. When I walked away from that experience, I felt like I could have floated up that mountain. I felt so high, right? Because finally, all the effort and all of the work that I had put in to this situation that I controlled paid off. But not only did it pay off, but all of the uncontrollables lined up for me, and it created the perfect scenario. And I found success on a hunt that typically sees like an 8 to 10% success rate, and it worked out for me. I want to say that hard work pays off, which I believe that's a true principle, but at the end of the day, I'm not entitled to find success to anything. I just have to do what I can do to control the elements that I control, and then go every single time I have an opportunity, trying and failing until finally I find that one where the stars align and I find success. That's a principle that I've taken into my life, into my personal life and into my business life. That every chance I have, if I see an opportunity to go after something that I've been trying to do or trying to accomplish, and an avenue opens up for me, I may not even understand all the steps I need to take down that avenue. I'm gonna start running down it and I'm gonna try. If I fail, I fail. I would have failed anyway by not trying, so why not try? But every once in a while, the stars are gonna align and I'm gonna find that success and I'm gonna hit the target that I'm after that has been so elusive to me. If you wanna become an elite escrow officer, it takes commitment, it takes dedication, it takes grit. You have to identify your plan, identify your targets, and try every single time. And when you see failure, you've got to shorten up that mental reset to pick yourself up, choose the next target, and go try again. But don't ever, ever, ever pass one up, because if you do, you're just never gonna know what might have happened. That could have been the one that turned the tide for your success, your career success, and your book of business.